everybody, and welcome to the May home-based meetup. This is our final week of the year. We are very glad to be here with you. We hope you are doing well. I hope you are getting ready to close your session out and have big summer plans so that you can move forward and take a little time off now that we're quote unquote back to normal. Hopefully you can have a little time for yourself this summer. So again, today is the NCEES session. We're going to go through a couple opening slides. Let's do a quick WebEx kind of overview. You see there the chat questions. Please, if you want to interact in the chat, click all participants and we can see the chat. If you're interested in just having it with us, please do the private questions with the QA. And then you can turn your camera on or off if you choose. And then you have your microphone there on or off. Please stay muted unless you are sharing. And in the bottom left corner, I believe you will have what is now a circle instead of the robot, which will allow captions to pop up. And then you see the little panel there at the bottom. Any questions on that before I move on? Hopefully you can raise your hand in the chat. Next slide, please. Home-based meetups overview. Next slide. Home-based meetups purpose is to foster productive field-based relationships with stakeholders, communicate product-specific information, and elicit feedback. As I have said over and over again, I think this is one of the most important meetings we do every year. Next slide. Homebase will be the definitive seamless go-to digital resource for North Carolina because of those items that it has in it. That when all those things talk nicely together, it is quite a wonderful experience for the students in North Carolina and the staff. Next slide. The presentation there is one. Now, obviously, as we go throughout the week, they will be listed below, but hers is in there. Cami's is already in there, and we will also give you the recordings at the end of the week. Next slide. There are the registrations. As you know, that we have one of these a day, and on Wednesday, because it's virtual, you'll have a double dose of Homebase, with 1 o'clock being learning.com and 10 o'clock being PowerSchool. Then you have Canvas, and this is a good time to remind you there will not be a Go Open session this Friday. There will not be a Go Open session this Friday, as Cami is quickly pointing or lasering us out. Next slide. There is the schedule. As you can see, we are on our last week, so we're not going to spend a lot of time here. Next slide. Because this slide I do want to spend a little time on. This is where we're going to be next year. As you can see, our two big hands out. Yay, we're so excited to be across the state. And we will be at varying locations throughout that week. So please make sure if you can host us. I believe we've said we need 1 big room and 3 breakout rooms, I believe are the rules that we've come to. If you can, let us know. I know you guys are planning all your staff development. We are going to do virtual in July, November, and February because the numbers tend to be low, but September and May tend to have very high numbers. So that's why we're going to be face-to-face out there with you all. So please let us know if you can host one, and email Yolanda over there on the bottom, and she'll be happy to help you get us a place. Thank you.
Yep. And Rob, I'll switch out this graphic today because the September one, it'll be just the 4 days, 26th to the 29th, and the May one will be the 1st through the 4th.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you. Homebase opt-in tool update. Before we jump into that, I added a slide in earlier or at the last minute, and it didn't make it in, and that's my fault. But one of the biggest things that I have to announce is Matthew Mayo is here with us, and he is the new home-based manager. So you can see him there in the corner. I don't know, do you want to say hello for a quick second?
Good morning, everybody. Looking forward to working with you across the state, and just excited to be here.
Okay, with that, we're so excited to have the Homebase opt-in tool update. The Homebase opt-in tool was taken offline as we did some upgrade of some systems here. It's going to return to service for May 16th, which is when the opt-in process starts. Then please remember the Homebase opt-in process this year is really a 2-step. You're going to have one step for saying, yes, I want SchoolNet, or no, I don't want SchoolNet. When you all say, yes, you want SchoolNet, it will pop up in the NCEES PD. It will pop up and ask you, do you want Transcend? And you can say yes or no. And there it will, your invoice will be appropriate based on your selections and choices that you have made. So please know that process is coming and it will be available May 16th. Next slide. Okay, next one. John, are you here with us?
I am. Good morning, everyone. So yeah, just a quick reminder about NC Cloud options for your younger students in grades pre-K through 5. We thought this was worth mentioning with some additional resources that we've added to NC Cloud recently. I think the next slide is about those, actually. But just a reminder, we have those options out there. Your younger students can log into NC Cloud with a QR code badge or using a pictograph instead of a password. And you can hit that link there for more information and to opt in to either of those features. Those are opt-in features. They're not automatic. And if you have any questions, of course, feel free to reach out to me. Thanks.
Thank you, John. I'm not sure if Cynthia is here, but that's okay. We can handle it. Home-based meetup updates. NCYSL, EBSCO, and Britannica resources are moving. If you have any questions about this, please contact Cynthia Sartain. On March 4th, they have now moved so that they are available through NC Cloud. I love the graphic down there of the house with the mailbox that says NC Cloud. I think that's pretty cool. So planned sunset of the NCYSL site is June 30th, but please know they are not going away. They are just in a new location. So please don't freak out that they are disappearing. They're just moving. Next slide. Educators level guidance, including resources, guidance at ESCO, can all be found at the toolkit. So please check that. Next slide. We are very proud to do NC Bold. We're going to go from the mountains to the sea, and we are going to be doing a Eastern cohort and a Western cohort. This is the opportunity where we take the conference to you. So please make sure that you are registering for those. We want to make sure that you are aware of the dates and where we're going to be, because it's very important that you learn the hands-on things that digital resources, the digital teaching and learning and home base can teach. And we are thrilled to do this. This has been very exciting, and I think it's one of the best things we do on a yearly basis. There's a lot of hard work that goes into this, from people in the field to DPI, and this is just a great way in order to showcase what happens in a classroom. Get you those tools you need. Brian, did I need to add anything there, or is that good?
Just the main thing is that we've not yet opened up registration, but we're asking people just to hold those dates. And the conference is free. There's no cost to attend, and you can come to multiple sessions if you like at multiple sites. Thank you, Rob.
Thank you, Brian. Next slide. SchoolNet Transcend. If you're interested, please contact. We're working on a SchoolNet person, but you see the contact information. This is repetitive, but we just thought we would put it up there. The at-home learning hub is complete, and the classic quiz will sunset to 6/30/24. Next slide. NCEES implemented district administrator central office view only role for superintendents to view all staff plans as well as training. Please, if you believe you need help with any of our products, reach out to us. We are happy to come to you. Next slide. We're all over social media. You've heard me talk about the call signs, the bleeps, the blaps, the whoop. Please go get our call signs, get on there, let us tell you what we're doing. Next slide. And there is Matthew Mayo, the home-based manager. He is in there. And please now, I don't believe we have any other additions. And you see the bit.ly for feedback. We read this and we value your feedback. So please make sure that you are giving us the feedback necessary so we can make this a better experience for you, because that's why we're all here. I'm sure you're done listening to me and want to listen to Cami because she does such a great job. So I'm going to turn it over to Cami. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Rob. Did anybody have any questions for or Rob or Matthew Mayo this morning before we move on? All right, I put the link to our slides in the chat. Let me see if I can get out of this and go to NCEES. All right, sorry about that. I thought I was at the beginning. We'll get to the beginning in just a second. So thank you guys for joining us today. Thank you for my team for joining as well. All right, we are at the NCEES portion of our home-based meetups, and the link is in the chat. If anybody needs that again, just please open your chat and ask for that, and we'll get it to you. Already done that part. I just want to do a quick check and see. I want to see if Sean, are you here today?
I am. Good morning.
Hey, I just wanted to check your schedule. Is it okay if we go through some slides first, or are you wanting to do your portion first?
Good. You do your thing.
Okay, thank you, Sean.
Thank you.
All right, so just real quick, if anybody wants to put in the chat and say hello, where you're from. Do we have anybody new here today? Please put that in there. We can also do this during the Padlet as well. So just wanted to put that out there for you. If you want to say hi to each other, please use your chat. And then we'll continue with our slides. Here is your list of contacts. Always check your district leads and your charter leads at our DPI website. We always need this updated. People are wanting to contact other districts, other charters, especially if you need people either inactivated in UID. You want to find those district leads so you can contact the correct folks to make that happen. So if you guys, we always try to keep a list of all our district leads, NCEES, PowerSchool, SchoolNet, all of those are out there. Check that list and make sure somebody can get us from your team an updated list. And that can go to Yolanda or our home base email right here, yolanda.wilson@dpi.nc.gov or home_base@dpi.nc.gov. And then we have our contacts for NCEES in the middle here. And I'm going to ask Dr. Robert Sachs if he wanted to say anything this morning. Is he on? He might not be on.
Nope, I'm here. No, it's you see it below my name. You see Jennifer Bass. Some of you may or may not be aware. Jennifer actually has come to the team in the last 3 months. Jennifer is filling the position that Dr. Kimberly Simmons was in for over 10 years, supporting NCEES across the state of North Carolina. So Jennifer brings with her experience as a school administrator. She also was a part of the larger team that Dr. Simmons and I have been a part of during Race to the Top. So she brings a lot of knowledge to this, and she's able to do a pretty good job of filling the really big shoes that Dr. Simmons left open when she retired almost a year ago now, actually. So just want to call your attention to that. And then I have some information and updates I'm going to be sharing in a slide in a few minutes. Thanks, Cami.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Robert. All right, and then we have your home base advisory board. We just met the other week. And there you see the names of the folks that join us on our home base advisory board that are your NCEES reps. So Angela Cogdill from Granville County, Sherry Thomas from Guilford County, Erica Newkirk from Chapel Hill Carborough, and Brian Prunts from Buncombe County. Mr. Dean Richardson retired, so we will be looking to replace him. We'd really like to get a charter member on board. So I will be reaching out to some. If we have charters listening today that you think you'd like to be a part of this group, you get to hear about the new things coming out at DPI and have input on all the different home-based products to help inform DPI and DPI inform you, and then you work in conjunction to getting the news out to all our districts. So this is an awesome group. So think about charters. If there's any charters you know of, please let me know that I can contact. Or if you're a charter listening, please contact me by my email. And if you're not a part of our NCEES email Google group, this is run by your colleagues. So Brian Protz in Buncombe County and Sally Reynolds in Wake County manage this group. Dr. Socks and I jump on only when we need to, but you guys are awesome about informing each other, answering each other's questions. This is a great networking group. So if you're not a member of this NCEES email group, you see the link is here. Let me turn my little pointer back on right here. You can request to join or just email one of these folks or myself, and we'll make sure you get on that email Google group. So we always like to do a Padlet activity. Let me copy the link and put it in the chat. This is where we list any challenges or successes you've had since the last time we met, and that was in February. So let me get this in the chat for you. And I'll tell you what's out here. A couple other things I noticed in our registrations, we did have some fairly new district administrators, and they were looking for best practices for EOY. So if you have any tips for new district administrators for best practices for EOY, if you'd add that to the middle column. So what you do to add is if you have the plus sign here, some of you might see a circle down in the corner or a plus sign at the top. Just click it and then enter your title. And then down here, you would put in your notes right here. And then you would just publish it. You can change it to pretty colors. There's lots of things you can do. You can heart it and you can add comments to other people's comments. If you like a comment out here, just add a little heart. And I'll give you a few minutes. I'm going to go mute for a couple minutes and let you start and share your good news, share your successes. Good news can be something happening in your personal life, in your educator life, and then successes with NCEES, challenges with NCEES, best practices for EOI. And then over in the other column, see if I can get out of here. It's not going to let me out of here. All right, over here in DPI action columns, if while we're talking, we see anything that I need to take back, we'll make sure to add it to the DPI action column. You can also add your name here if you want to join that NCEES Google group, or if you're not getting our NCEES weekly bulletin that I put out every Friday, and just put your name and email over there. Any questions about the Padlet? Anybody that can't access it? All right, I'm going to give you just a minute or two to start adding. Okay, well, y'all keep typing. I see a few notes are out here, so we're going to start going over some of them. The first one is successes. Somebody's had success with their beginning teacher paperwork. Would anybody like to unmute and speak to that? It says we are in the midst of collecting our beginning teacher paperwork, and in NCEES, their observations are appropriately spaced out and their PDPs have their mentor signatures too. That is awesome. Somebody also commented that this is great. It really is, because there's a lot of time when those mentor signatures don't get in place and you have to go reopen things to make sure that's done on those comprehensive plans. So great work, whichever district that is. Great work with that. Here's a challenge. It says, we got some more. Plan change challenges. No easy way to switch to a different plan type. Issue at this time of year regarding comprehensive with peer observation requirement. Yes, and we too wish there was an easier way to switch to a different plan type. Maybe when one day we can get to that upgraded version, we are looking at a way to expand on a plan so that it can become one or the other types of plans. But right now, you have to assign the other plan type, copy over everything into the new plan type, and then deactivate or archive the previous plan once it's copied over. So yes, remember, we are always asking about this and looking at this and hoping to find a way for that to work. NCEES has been slow a lot lately, and PowerSchool has been good when it has been slow to jump on and figure out what's going on. But yes, keep reporting that. I always need a ticket open in ServiceNow that I can escalate to PowerSchool. So as soon as you start noticing that, let me know so that we can escalate it on up. This last time they had to restart a few server operations and clear their cache at PowerSchool, and that seemed to improve things. Is there a report that can be run by school site that shows a list of certified staff and their end of year summative ratings? This would be very helpful. If you're a district or a site administrator, you can run a quick report for the summary evaluations, and we will be looking at that today. It was also covered in our last home-based meetups if you want to watch that recording as well. And then we also have a reporting webinar that talked about under the reporting tab, the quick reports. There's a whole list of summative summary evaluation ratings reports there for you to run. And then, yep, another slow. Okay. Yes, keep us posted about those slow things so that we can try to be on top of that and let PowerSchool know as soon as it happens. All right, best practices for EOY. It says run reports on your deadlines and share with school-based admin to catch any outstanding needs and items prior to the end of May 1st or June before staff leave. Who posted that? Do you mind unmuting and kind of give us a overview of your calendar timelines when you do that? I'm gonna show y'all where your unmute button is. Folks are quiet today.
Sorry, I had to get back from my Padlet. It was Angela.
Oh,
Did that.
hey,
Sorry,
Angela.
I was trying to go between screens. I didn't have that one open for me. I was like, I lost it.
Thank you,
I
Angela.
just knowing that staff leave, and sometimes we see that maybe a signature is missing, or end of the year PDP for those of you with BTs or mentors there, just trying to catch them before they leave to go home, and especially if your APs are 10-month. As well. So just trying to make sure sending those principals the reports of status and then locking any containers that need to be closed out.
Yes. Anybody else want to make any comments about end of year for our new folks? We are going to be discussing some more about end of year shortly. All right, and then I see a couple of you put your name in there. I can look your emails up in NCEES, but if you want to add it here, that's fine. If not, I'll look you up or contact you later. All right, we're going to jump back to our slides. You can always add to the Padlet as we go if you think of anything else. And let's look at our NCEES updates. So I just wanted to give you a quick overview of our numbers this year compared to last year. This is what we archived last year. We're very close in numbers. So last year we archived 25,000 comprehensive plans. Currently we have over 26,000 comprehensive plans in progress. So in the little parentheses are how many plans were assigned. I did want to put that because somebody had to assign plans. So whoever of you out there that assign plans, and there's 268 not even started yet, you might want to go check to see why. The standard plans, 29,000, abbreviated 50,000, and so on. But they all seem very similar to last year, up maybe 300 to 400 in most cases. The only plan that is system assigned is the principal plan, so we see a bigger number here of plans not started because these get system assigned. NCEES end of year is coming up. We're asking all our districts this year to be done by June 29th. Please let everybody know. I would suggest even being done a couple weeks before then, so you have time to run all your reports and make sure there aren't those little stragglers running around. And Eleanor, is that question for end of year? Does that include CMS? The usual plan, Eleanor, is we're still not archiving plans until June 30th. I just wanted everybody to be done a little bit sooner because it seems like on that Friday, there's a lot of people still trying to assign folks as peers, things like that. And so I want you to get in there earlier. The earlier you can, the better, to make sure those peer observations are in, make sure those mentor signatures. Oh, the numbers. Does that number include? Yes, it should include CMS. Yes. So the numbers from, yeah, I just ran it overall. You're welcome. All right, and then we'll work with the vendor. Right now I'm testing out the next year plans, and we will get those ready to be targeted to staff. Remember, NCEES never really goes down. People that are taking PD can continue to take PD during this time period. If there's for any reason we need to like tell people to stay out, I will communicate that. But as usual, when the plans are archived, it doesn't shut the system down. It only archives the plans. And then once they're archived, nobody can work in those archive plans. They're archived. So, and then when we have our plans ready to be up and running for the 22-23 school year, those should be targeted between July 6th and July 8th. And July 8th is a Friday. So we'll let you know and communicate more about that as we get closer to that time frame. We are still working on the EC with our EC department here at DPI, the PD only access. And this is where we're adding staff to a new support demographic. So everybody in NCEES comes in as instructional, whether you're a counselor, whether you're a teacher, a social worker, you come in as instructional and you should stay that designation for reporting purposes. Some people have tried to go in there and move some of those roles like counselors over to support, but that is locked out now, and we're hoping to get that in the person import file also to only update what's in the person import file, but that piece is still being worked on. And then your administrative staff, your principals, your superintendents, your supervisors, those kind of things, they come in under administrative. We are adding support demographics to assist with this big request we've had for several years to let people in the system to take PD that's available in NCEES from DPI. So we are adding a support demographic. These are the pilot budget codes that we're working with right now. The 132 should already be in NCEES. They come in anyway, 132s just by themselves. But pairing them with these purpose codes will give them these roles in NCEES. And then we're looking at adding the 144s and a couple 145s. And you can see the role titles here. We were wanting to get this in before the end of the year. However, because there's going to be some new navigational tabs for the people under support, it might be better to do this during the EOI process. So I would love to hear from you if you're okay with doing this during the EOI rollover. We're so close to the end of the year. I don't want, there's currently probably under 2,000 staff that this will add. So not a super huge number, but big enough because you're going to see them on your rosters on the My Staff page. You can hide them with filters, and then they also have new navigational tabs here. So I think it's best to do this during the EOI process. Do you have any comments about that? I need my teacher wait time. Anybody have any comments about adding extra people to NCEES so they can take PD?
Is that for PD only, or will the SLPs have their rubrics in NCEES as well?
Is for PD only. If they currently don't have rubrics, we don't have anything planned in place to add any additional rubrics at this time. Okay, thank you for that question. All right, if no more questions, we're going to move on. This is another roadmap item, and this is maybe a little harder to explain, but something else the districts have been wanting. Districts, when one staff leaves, if they leave, say Charlotte Meck and they go to Durham, their plan should deactivate when they're inactivated in staff by Charlotte Meck. This does happen unless you're a district that says leave the person active for 30 days so they can access other systems through the single sign-on system. So they leave them active in UID for 30 days, which causes an overlap issue in NCEES, meaning the plans don't deactivate until that inactivated status in UID happens. So PowerSchool has developed a solution, and it looks to be a very good solution, where if it sees a new primary site for a staff for a district, not if they move from school A to school B in a district, but if they move from district A to district B, if it sees that new primary site, then if there is one, it will take that any current plans that they have assigned and deactivate them. And then the teacher plan type and the PDP plan type will be set to not selected. The biggest problem we have is I don't see a good backup plan if this doesn't work. And the reason why I think it may not work is we need the HR data and UID data to be clean across the state. Because if people are not keeping that clean, then you're going to see people's plans get deactivated probably that shouldn't be. I don't know how big a problem that might be. We had discussed at the advisory board, maybe seeing if we can run this as a pilot with one district. I believe we've talked about that with PowerSchool, and it was an all or nothing, but I am taking that question back. The backup plan is if we don't want this job to run once we've turned it on in production, PowerSchool is going to set a configuration point so that they can turn it off at our request from ever running again. And then there's also, they said they could re-import the previous night's NCEES import file. And they also said they could restore deactivated plans within 30 days, but that's not been tried. If that can't happen, then I'm the only one that really can restore those plans. So if there's a lot of them, that's way too much for my plate. So we need to be very careful implementing this. And we did have some discussion at advisory, and I'd like to know if you guys have any discussion about this. I did want to show the next slide because it also affects HR data. And that's because HR data sends primary location right here. And that should be fine. But once it gets into UID and other districts have activate the staff, it then looks at the last update date in UID to help define the primary site. So we have a multiple process for defining primary sites. I'm holding off on this right now. I would like your input if you have any other thoughts, or let our advisory folks know, because we are keeping this into discussion. We would love to move forward with this, but we need a good backup plan and we need clean data from the districts. Any suggestions on how to do that? Any comments at all? All right, I'm gonna take that as an okay for me to hold off. Eleanor, do you have an idea? I see that in the chat. To restore, yes, Eleanor says you could manually run part of the import file. Yes, if we needed to restore or as the pilot. Okay, let me take that back and let's maybe look at that. I know I was going to get with Brian's not on. He says Brian Probst and Buncombe. We were going to talk later as well. Maybe we could get a little group together, or with our Nuggets group, or Eleanor, we can ask you to join that and maybe talk through some of that. Doing it in a test is a little harder, but yes, we have talked with Sean about doing this in tests. Okay, any other comments? Thank you, Eleanor. Okay, the next item I have is our NCEES needs survey. We are going to put one out in 2022. I'm hoping in mid-May to target this to go out. Working on the questions right now and getting our form created. It has to be approved before it can go out. So I'm working on this right now. It's been since 2018 since we did a full-blown needs survey. We have done surveys about every year or so, but not this big. So we're going to redo our 2018 survey to include your skills assessment, the training that you've received from DPI or at your local PSU, any resources that you use current and any potential resources you'd like to use. What are your training needs by topic and maybe by calendar date to help us with our planning of training, and then review the NCEES product components for evaluation and professional learning within your district. We always ask questions about your PSU reps. A lot of people don't even know we have PSU reps on the advisory board, just to get that knowledge level out there. And then we do want to know, as we roll this PD only out, we need from you to identify and prioritize which roles, which staff do you need in NCEES to take PD that's offered by DPI, because that will help us decide which budget codes to address next. And then for our NCEES roadmap, any comments or suggestions? I would like for you to do this maybe by a team, so maybe one survey per district. So think about who can be on that team to answer those questions, because probably you'll need different people to answer each one of these questions. All right. Any questions about the survey? Okay. All right, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Socks to talk about our new principal rubric that we've had this year.
Great. So some of you are aware that we this year are piloting a revised set of school leader standards, the rubric we use for principals and APs. That rubric was developed over a period of about 3 years of a large committee coming together to design those, and then we got feedback from the field, from principals, assistant principals, college and universities, human resources directors, as well as superintendents. This year, at the beginning of the year, we began a pilot with 7 school districts: Clinton City, Mooresville Graded, Perquimans County, Swain County, Thomasville City, Yadkin County, and Winston-Salem Forsyth. Those districts have been utilizing this new set of principal standards this year. I anticipate that in the 2022-23 school year that DPI will expand that pilot to additional volunteer districts. So we'll have these 7 districts, and then we'll add to that as we extend that pilot. The requirement to pilot basically is, once you volunteer, Cami and I work with the vendor, we get the tool set so that it delivers you the new rubric. The new rubric has 1 additional standard. Standard 8 is the equity standard. So if you think you're interested, many of you may have been at the PANC meeting a week or so ago, where I presented and let you know that we were going to be inviting other folks to pilot for the 2022 school year. So if you think you're interested, your district is interested, we need to hear from somebody pretty high up. Superintendent would be the best person, and even if the HR director or a district leader says, hey, we want to pilot, we're still going to reach out to the superintendent and make sure that the superintendent is on board with using this new instrument in your district in 2022-23. If you're interested, feel free to email me, but I also would like to invite you to use the Educator Effectiveness at DPI nc.gov email. I'm going to be transitioning away from this work later this summer, and I want to make sure that your interest in the pilot gets into the right place. So by adding educator effectiveness to your how you communicate that interest. I also am a person who checks that email address, so it comes to me and a couple of other colleagues. So when I step away, that'll make sure that your interest in this work remains at DPI and not in my inbox where I'm not paying as much attention to it as I might need to. So that's the update on where we're headed. Again, the pilot has been in place this year with those 8 districts. We're expanding via volunteers. So we hope you're interested. And I know from the PANC meeting a couple of weeks ago that there are several districts that appear to be interested. Those HR directors are going to take it back to their superintendents and see if they were interested in picking it up for their district for the 22-23 school year. And thanks, Cami, for the opportunity to share.
Thank you, Robert. Any questions for Robert? I did see a question come in about the PD only, and it says, can retired teachers continue to have access so they can maintain their licenses through NCEES PD? So that is kind of what I want to know from you. Who are the folks that you want to be able to access NCEES PD? What are their budget codes and their role? Now, if they're retired, I don't know if there's a retired object budget code that's paired with a purpose code that can define a retired certified staff. That might be something that would also have to go through accountability. We do work very closely with school business and accountability to make sure we are pairing together budget codes correctly and not telling you you can use a code with an object code with a purpose code that accountability doesn't allow. So they always get pulled into this conversation as well.
Cami, can I offer
Yes.
an opinion here? So I know that some districts are hiring retired folks back to fill positions. So I can see an opportunity to attempt to solve the problem that if a retired teacher is hired to come back to fill a position, they could utilize the PD system. I don't know if that's what this question is about, but I do not envision the likelihood that this system would be expanded so that a retired teacher, i.e. someone who's not employed by a district, would continue to have access to PD. That's kind of a different category of folks. And I want to make sure that people on this call realize we're talking about, when we talk about retired people and we're optimistic about retired people using the system, we're talking about that 3rd grade teacher that retired and now has come back to do something else and they're employed part-time to do something else. If they're engaged and employed with a district, they have every right to use this system, and if we can figure out how to get those payroll codes to allow and do that, that will be a priority. But the idea that a teacher retires, they've retired before their license has expired, and they want to maintain their PD to renew their license a year or 2 years after they retire, it is highly unlikely that the NCEES PD system would be a source that they could have access to once they're no longer employed by a district.
Thank you, Robert. All right, here's a list of all the webinars we've held last year. Just want to give you the full list of what we've been doing this past year and the webinars that have been offered to you. They are posted out here on NCEES YouTube as well for access. You can still earn certificates until the end of the school year. Once the end of the school year happens, then that survey goes away. But you must watch it, and it's up to you to turn it into your district and prove to your district that you've watched the webinar and you want to request approval for the certificate CEUs. And thank you for that comment. There's somebody, Katie, who said the webinars are excellent. Yes. Jennifer and I will soon be planning out next year webinars. So thank you very much. All right. Here's February's HBMU home-based meetups recordings and presentations if you missed February. And here's what's new since May. I did leave this district admin creating ad hoc reports in here. That was actually February, I think, just because you guys are still looking at doing reports, and we're going to be talking about reports shortly. We also did deep dive into PD playlist. We're going to review export a plan to PDF today as well. And then there's some other end of year. If you've missed those end of year processes, please go back and watch those. And I got a very good chance to go out in Angela Cogdill's area, and we did the spring Wrightsville Beach Pank, and this is our NCEES top 10. I do want to let you guys know, if you guys are holding panks or Reese's or different things, different regional items like that, I'm happy to come out as long as it fits in our calendar. I just need to know about it. So let me know. I have found that those Q&A sessions are wonderful, or even a session such as this refresher. We always have a lot of good questions from the audience, and it's well received to learn more about NCEES. All right, so what's new since May? PowerSchool migrated our hosting from Rackspace to Amazon Web Services. That seemed to take about a month, but we are through it. And everything seems to be going okay, except for those occasional slowness issues. And yes, somebody's wanting the slides. Let me do that real quick. Yep. All right. And then we also had admin were having trouble viewing the notes that they needed to see when notes were entered into those evaluations. And so that was fixed. I put a link to the bulletin about that news. NCVPS updated their Moodle courses. They're no longer in Moodle. They're over in Canvas. There are a few remaining Moodle courses that I am going to be working on with Jennifer to update and move over to Canvas. Here's a list of the previous Moodle courses that NCVPS have moved over to Canvas. If you have not seen that list, there's a link to that. EdStar content is now a premium library. Sean did a webinar with us, and here's the bulletin about that and the links to the webinar. Our home-based resource hub is published for NCEES as well as all the other home-based products. NCEES has beginning of year in there and end of year in there. I'm working on middle of year and then all the other troubleshooting and all those other tabs. There's a whole good section on if you're a brand new admin. If you're brand new, please click out there. If you don't have access to home-based resource, email me or email Corey McNeil on my team. He's over DPI's Canvas. And we'll make sure to get you in there. If you're active in NCEES, you're most likely active in Canvas, but not always. So just let us know. And then we've also, Audrey on my team has helped us update our help guides, and we've moved almost all of them over to Google Docs. And everybody seems to like those because you can take them and redo them for your district. Just make sure you credit them to your district if you're not using the exact DPI ones. Here's a link to, I just want to leave this slide in here from last month. This has now been published. This is what the Product Center Resource Hub looks like. Getting started, who is your support crew for NCEES? Getting started is for those beginners and fairly new folks, all the links out there that you're going to need. And again, the module 1 is fairly complete. That's your beginning of year, and then module 3 should be about complete, and that's your end of year. So new items, somebody requested a list of our new items for next year. There's no major changes happening in the plans. So don't expect anything like that. There, as we go through, we need to make sure our requirements are in place. I do have several, sorry about that, several, good gracious, several enhancement requests in the PowerSchool Ideas portal. And I'll get that link out here for the portal. But you can join that and you can vote up any of these. The ones that are highlighted yellow, we've identified as priority, with PowerSchool. But it helps when we have votes. If you can't get into PowerSchool portal, maybe Sean can help us do that. But I think there's just an area in there where you can just register to be able to get in there. Go look at the PowerSchool ideas. I've given you the numbers for the NCEES ideas. I believe I've got about 28 enhancement requests out there. So please check all of these out. Here's one for us. I made this big because this is the latest one. To enhance the assign access rights menu drop down. I did want to look at that real quick in NCEES. And I'm just going to show you. I haven't logged in. I think, Sean, we did this in training and I had open test and it's not in test, but I can explain it. So when you go to, we've had several requests and I do want your input on what would be better. And the request was, let me do this. Oops, I could spell. So when you're out here and you want to assign access rights to folks, we've had a request to not have the evaluator be the first choice in the list. I'm trying to get here so I can show it to you. And mine may be a little slow because I am statewide, so. So we have a solution. There is a PowerSchool enhancement request to make the very first thing to say, please select or leave it blank, so that they have to drill down, because when your district administrators or your site administrators are assigning access rights, they are just leaving evaluator there, or they're quickly clicking on observer instead of peer observer. So, and here's that slowness issue. So we may be reporting this morning. It shouldn't be taking this long. We may have to come back to this one. Gracious. All right, well, what I'm going to do is put a screenshot in the slide deck. We're going to come back and see if this is loaded up, but we're going to move on with our slides and come back and check this.
Hey, Cami, I actually have it on my screen, so as soon as I start my part, I can show it, or I can share my screen right now if you'd like.
Okay. Yeah, I have to move you over. Let's see. Participants. All right, let me find Sean. There you are. Okay, Sean.
All right, so you're able to see it there, Cami?
Yes.
Okay, so here's the screen. I have it from a past one, but what we did was we added a bit here to be able to bump peer observer up as the first.
Yep. So that Sean can add an asterisk before peer observer so it can be first in the list. My question back to the group was, which one are you assigning more of? Are you assigning more peer observers than evaluators? Just didn't want to create more work for if everybody's assigning more people as evaluators and we bump it off the top of the list, is that going to create more work? Or would you rather, and this is where I want you to unmute or put in the chat, would you rather see peer observer up there?
Yeah. Hey, Sean and Cami, this is Brian and Buncombe. So I think first of all, we need to understand this really only for step 2 choose plan. This only applies to the comprehensive evaluation that requires a peer observer. I mean, while it would still be okay to put it on an abbreviated evaluation plan type, but I like, Cami, what you just said about the first thing that comes up in box 4 for choose rights is like a dash that says please select, and if they just simply click add without making a conscious choice as to what rights they want to choose, it gives them an error versus putting an asterisk on one of these, because then we're just opening a can of worms for people inadvertently given peer observer rights.
Right. So if that's the case, then I need you all to go make a PowerSchool community account and go vote up that PowerSchool idea.
And it's here at help.powerschool.com. And when you come in here, you would just do a sign in and you would register now. And then the ideas portal is right up here in contact support. And then you can search for those individual ones that Cami was showing a little bit ago and give them a vote up. And we look at those every other week to go through and decide, what's next on our list.
Okay. Any other comments about the peer observer? Thank you, Brian. And thank you, Sean.
Thank you.
All right. Let's see if I can take back host. All right, we're bumping up on 11 o'clock, so we'll get into training in just a minute. All right, and that's number I-128, enhance assigned access rates meaning. But there's several ones out here, and if you click on them, I put screenshots and also explanation of what each one is. Oh, I timed that one. So somebody had a question about what reports were out there for those ratings. And so that's on the right-hand side of this screen. That's your quick reports module. So you would go to reporting, and then the very first container is reports, and you would choose the module quick reports. And then under quick reports are all these evaluation completion and also your evaluation summaries. Those are the ones that are going to give you the ratings. So you have current year reports. Here's a list of end of year reports, especially to run. I can't stress enough that you need to run your reports that you need for records and for planning for 22-23. Run them before June 30th or by June 30th. If you start an export to PDF plan, it will keep running. You are queued up behind whoever's ahead of you, but they will keep running if you get those reports in. So NCEES end of year is June 29th. We're just asking you to be done by then so that I can have Friday to review everything. You can have Friday to review everything. Make sure there's no stragglers. Make sure your reports are running or have been run. Make sure you confirm your staff lists are accurate. Delete or archive any unnecessary started evaluation plans. If you see that your staff have plans that have been assigned, but they've not started, just leave those alone. They will go away when plans are archived. If nothing's been started in that plan, it just kind of goes away. And then confirm that everybody has completed all those evaluations and PDP plans that have been assigned prior to 6/29. Right now I'm working on, well, I'll change these dates, testing the 22-23 plans. Working with the vendor on our EOI tasks as they come up, any corrections to plans or updates we need to have in here. And then I will be running our standard ratings reports for EVOS at the close of business on June 30th. So as soon as PowerSchool hears from me, they will archive the plans. Any questions about that process? I just want to reiterate. Let me find my chat. I see some questions. I lost my, move this, sorry. Over here so I can see the chat. All right, what should we do with situations where a plan was started when the teacher was out due to medical and the plans cannot be finished? So in that case, and Dr. Stocks may want to speak to that as well, I would have if the educator still has access to the plan, put a note in the record of activities. There's one in PDPs and there's one in the evaluation. And once they edit it, they can edit the teacher background. That's a good place to put that kind of note. But it will not be finished. And Dr. Stocks, did you want me to say anything to that?
Yeah, no, I think, Cami, your recommendation to put notes in there so that if someone wanted to read the text of the plan, they have information. But if a teacher is out on medical leave, you literally are abandoning the plan. You are unable to complete those evaluation steps because the teacher is not working. So the plan is incomplete. It does not get finished. It's logical that it's not finished because the teacher was not working. But again, and you could just abandon the plan and just leave it. But Cami's recommendation to put some notes in some places just so if somebody later is going back and looking, and this would be a somebody from your district, not a somebody from DPI. We're not going to be drilling down looking at that. But you wouldn't try to do anything heroic to evaluate a teacher who stops working because they go out on medical leave. That teacher stopped working, so the evaluation process stopped at the point at which they were no longer working.
Okay, thank you. All right, save any hard copies or digital copies of your staff plans as they leave during the school year because their plans move with them. We were just talking about that a while ago. If you need them later, superintendents want those evaluations later. Make sure you also save a copy before they leave. Train staff to print their own copies of NCEES plans and their PD transcripts when they leave your district, because then they don't have to call you back a few months down the road and say, I'm in Oregon and I need my plans. Can you get them for me? Well, you may can or you may not can, depending on how staff UID and person import file interprets where they're currently at. If you have access to them, you may can. If not, it may take a ticket to DPI to print those out. But if they are trained to print them out before they leave or put them on a digital hard drive, they'll have those when they go. Also, make sure as you're hiring those new staff, I haven't seen as big a problem with this year, where payroll has hired new staff and they've go ahead and made them active. We've only had one ticket and it really messed up the plans, the current year plans. So it did get fixed, but we had to do a group communication. Do not activate any new staff for 22-23 until after July 1st or July 1st or after 2022. I see that, Katie. If you can't find it, Katie, just put a support ticket in, please, for the summatives. All right, and I think I'm going to hand this back to Sean. He is going to go over ad hoc reporting for you, and then I'll follow up with those exported plans to PDF. Let me get my participant list. Any questions before we pop this over? Okay, Sean, you can be presenter.
All right, thank you. So Cami asked me to just do a kind of a quick overview of ad hoc reporting. And so we're going to look at it in 3 areas. We're going to look at just basics, the basic area of ad hoc reporting. And then we're going to look at the professional learning side of it, or look at that PD side. And then we're going to look at the evaluation side. My hope is that the bulk's going to be on that evaluation piece here as we get going. So Cami, are you able to see my screen? Just verifying it?
Yes.
Fabulous. All right, so starting here with the basics of ad hoc reporting. So just for those of you who maybe haven't gotten into this area before, I went to the System Administration tab, ad hoc reporting, and then picked a report. Now, in this case, I just picked a roster report, but the part I'm going to talk about now, it really doesn't matter which report you run. It all basically works the same. So this page is really broken up into a couple of different areas. First of all is over here on the left side. We're going to talk about the gray boxes here in just a little bit, but we're going to come to the main area here because this is really the main part of reporting for us. So going through each of the columns, just want to make sure you understand what each of these do. Starting right here with the select column, this is what data do I want to see in the field. So now I personally, it always starts out with a defaulted set. I personally always come in and do my double click so that I start out with my own personal information or my own area that I can have. I don't need to worry about anybody else's, the default in that direction. But then you can come down the line and you can check each one of these. One piece that I do like to call out is if you are narrowing a field down. So for example, in PL here, if I want to narrow registration down to say I only want to see those that are completed, you do not also have to include that in your report. Because you're just going to get a column that is a straight line down of just completed, 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 completed. You don't have to include that field itself. The filter will display. It actually shows up here in the upper left corner of the report when it runs that there is a filter for registration status. Now, that being said, if you're doing something more like, I want to see only things that were completed within a certain time period, and you say, on or after, let's just pick a random date here, on or after November 1st. In this case, I may want to include it because even though I'm filtering it out, I still want to be able to see, who completed in November versus December versus January versus February. So you can include that. You just don't have to. I always like to point that one out. I'm coming next here to the sort column. This is just an alphabetical sort. So just like in Excel, do you want to sort by 2 different columns? I always think of the example of I want to sort by last name, then by first name. So it's going to alphabetize all of my last names. And if I have multiple people with the last name of Williams, it's going to alphabetize them by first name within that. It is always going to go A to Z and low to high. So A to Z alphabetically and low to high if it's a numerical value. This button up here allows you to flip that. So if you'd like it to go high to low or Z to A, you can just click on that right there and it's going to flip it. You can't change it per option. It's an all or nothing choice right there. Next up, and this is the one that is probably one of my favorite ones, is if you are saving your reports so that you can access them in the reporting tab. So if I come in here, I'm just going to open up my reporting tab here quickly. And when I come to my reporting tab, I get the My Ad Hoc Reports channel, which is down here a little bit. But this is a shortcut for you to be able to access any of the reports that either you have saved or that have been published to you. So if like Cami creates a report and publishes it to you, it gives you that ability. Now, when I click on this little graph icon right over here, rather than bringing me to this page, it's actually just going to run the report. So it just runs it for me. So if it's something that I know I need to run on a regular basis, I don't need to keep going to this page to make changes. I'm just going to run it. I can do this. Now, it does still work the same way as all ad hoc reporting, in the sense that you get the little note saying your report's been run. You'll get an email when it's ready. And then all those reports actually then show up down here. So you can see here's 2 reports I ran this morning. I can come in here and I can access those reports right down here. Now, what this filter option column does is it adds a filter onto this shortcut. So as I said, if I click this, it's going to automatically run that report. But if I come in first and I say, you know what, I want a filter option of last name and first name. Now, when I click on this little graph icon for that report, instead of it just running, it's actually going to open up a page that only has these 2 filters right over here. So it allows me to be able to filter by last name and first name. So if you're going to run a report that all the data is always going to be the same, except on a weekly basis, you want to change the dates. You want to be able to say like what PD is happening upcoming, what evaluation data has changed in the last week. You could add a filter option just for those pieces. So whenever you run that report, instead of getting the couple hundred options here, you could just get the 1 or 2 options that you want to be able to see. And you could have multiple. I've got districts that have 10, 20, 30 options here because it's still less than the 100 or something options that are on this page. Next up is the graph option. This is if you want the data to be displayed in a pie chart or a bar chart. A couple things that I like to point out with this one. First of all, is it doesn't just give you a pie or a bar. It also gives you a legend that gives you a count and a percentage. So if you need to be able to identify who has completed something, you could go in and you could run that report here and be able to see what's the count, what's the percentage, get an idea there in that perspective. Second thing is you'll notice, it's a little hard on my screen, but you'll notice some of these are highlighted in pink and some of them are just the normal, white gray stripes that we have. If they're highlighted in pink and I hover over it, it's going to give me the little choice here, or the little pop-up of that graphing is not usually recommended because there's just too many values. So for example, a pie chart of last names in North Carolina would probably be ridiculous. It wouldn't really run. In some cases it does run, in some cases it doesn't. But you can see for registration status, well, I only have, 10 or 12 registration statuses anyway. And so a pie chart or a bar chart is a legitimate thing when it comes to that perspective. The final piece when it comes to the graph option, if you haven't done this before, is you do need to make sure that you choose the graphical option either here or down here. If you pick one, it does automatically update the other one. But that's going to be the piece that's going to trigger that it needs to be a pie or a bar chart for the areas that you selected. Now, once you have that graphical report, there is an option in the upper right corner of that report that says show raw data. So you can still get your raw data report with your graphical report for each one of those. And then finally is the filter itself. So the filter itself is what data do I need to filter down by? So I'm only going to care about people that have completed this observation step or people that have completed this course. Or maybe I really just need to look at, I've got a meeting with Dr. Socks and I just need to look at his data today. I can do that prior to being able to run that report. So I can put in that filter over here. There are different options of contain, start with, if it's dates, probably one of the ones that gets skipped a lot is this between, that you can do a date range between one date and another, and you can narrow down each of those components. Now, finally, on the right side of the screen is the simple fact that depending on what report you're looking at, it's going to pull from multiple databases. So I'm in a professional learning report. I am pulling the roster report specifically. So I've got my roster database. If I come down here, I've got my sections database. If I come down a little further, I've got my courses database. So I can pull different data in. Now, one piece to be cautious about is that depending on what level of database you're pulling, is going to be how many lines you're going to get. So I think professional learning is a super concrete one. So I'll kind of cover it with evaluation as well. But with professional learning, well, if I am pulling only data from the courses, I'm going to get a single line per course, as long as I'm not including any section or roster data. As soon as I come up here and I start including data at the section level, I'm going to start getting a line per section. So if I've got a course that's one course, but it has 20 sections in it, now I'm going to get 20 lines because I've included info from the section. Now, once I include any data from the roster, now I'm going to get a line per person, per section, per course. So my one course with 20 sections with 20 people each is now going to be a 400 line report because I'm getting individual data for each individual person. So I just always like to call that one out because I will regularly get calls where people say, I'm trying to run this data about who completed this and I don't understand why it's got 400 lines, because it's giving you a line per record for each one of those. All right, and then finally for the basics here is over on the left side of the screen is the two gray boxes. So first of all, the first box up here, just the run report box. This is if all you want to do is run it. You're not trying to save it. You're not trying to rerun it later. I use this one a lot when it's I'm trying to make sure that I'm getting the right data before I go in and save it. You can just run it. Clear takes it back to its default state. Run runs it. Again, like before, the raw data and the graphical is just what it is there. The second box is maybe a little bit more important, and this is if you're going to save that report. Now, you would save it for a couple of different reasons. One is if you know this is something you're going to access on a regular basis. Two would be if you want to share this report with somebody else. So you want to share it out. Now, when you share it, it's going to change the data. So if I'm at one district and I share it with another district, they're not going to see my data. It's going to limit out and only show the appropriate data for each one of those. Now, when it comes to saving, the name part is really, really important. I always recommend that you keep the name as descriptive as possible. It does have this little fine print that says any report with the same name will be overwritten. Now, that does not mean if Cami creates a report and I create a report with the same name that we're going to overwrite each other. What it does mean is if I create a report and then I create a second report with the same name, it's going to overwrite it. So I really recommend not naming your reports things like Sean's report, because then you're not going to know what it is when you come back to it later, and two, it has the potential of overwriting as you're adding in more reports. So I would always highly recommend things, make it very descriptive. What is it you're trying to run? This could be end of year summative sign-offs. It could be whatever it is you want to give it that name. And then with that being said, the description is kind of a pointless field. You can leave it blank. It doesn't really do a whole lot in that area. This area here is only something for super users, so we're going to skip over that. Right down here to report type, raw data, and graphical. So again, that same idea up there. And then finally, the include the summary rows. I like the include the summary rows. This is if you have any numerical data, this will give you a sum and a mean average of that data at the bottom of it. So if there's something you're trying to figure out, for example, from the PL side, you need to identify how many literacy CEUs were earned in your district this year. You could go in and you can include that summary row and it'll do the math for you in that perspective. And then save and save as work just like you would think. If I save it, so let's say Cami builds a report, she sends it out to you and you're like, this is an amazing report, but for my district, I need one more field. You could go in, you could add that one field, change the name, click save as, and it'll modify it for everything that you need. All right. So next up, I am watching that chat. So if there's any questions or anything, you can put them up there and I can respond to anything that pops up there. Now I'm going to jump, just for time's sake, I'm going to go ahead and jump right into the professional learning side of things. Professional learning is a much simpler version of reporting than the evaluation for two reasons. One, professional learning reporting, as you can see here, it's very standard. There's not a whole lot going on, and you'll see what I'm talking about when it comes to evaluation stuff here in just a little bit. But it is just kind of what it is. Now, I generally recommend about 5 different reports that you could run, and those 5 different reports, I'm going to start with my trilogy of ones that I think are really important, are the courses, roster, sections. Those are probably my most commonly run professional learning reports. They allow you to be able to run all data from when you create a course, all data from when you create a section, and all data from the roster itself. Now, what I really like about professional learning reporting that is different than the evaluation side is that if I run a sections report, I can still get data from courses and sections. If you remember what I showed you just a little while ago, I can actually scroll down and get all of that info. Same thing with roster, same thing with courses. So they can kind of overlap as you go through each one of those. Why would you choose one over the other? You'd really do it for two reasons. One is, what is the order that you would like the data to display? So if I come back in here, my report is going to populate with the columns left to right in the order that I choose top to bottom. So if I really, really, really need the first fields to be last name, first name, you're going to have to do a roster report, because course and section aren't going to include names. So you can still add names on, it's just going to be much further down the list. The other thing, and this is probably the more pertinent one, is that it is kind of like running data through a series of sieves. You've got your course sieve, your section sieve, and your roster sieve. So because of that, I always start with if I think of what question I'm trying to answer, where does that data where does it exist? So for example, if I'm trying to run data of who completed this course, well, that's all at a roster level. I would run it as a roster report. If I was trying to run a report on what data, what sections existed at a specific time, like what sections occurred on a day, that's all section data. I would run that report. If this was what courses have a specific tag, I would go in. The tags are the pieces you can go search by. That would be something that I could go in and I could run a courses report. So there's different reports that you can run for each of those. But again, what I like about professional learning, especially with those three, is that you can't really go wrong. If you pick one, you can get all the data from the other ones as well. The other trilogy of reports, now again, earlier I said 5, so there's one overlap here. But the other trilogy of reports I really like is the course transfer credit report, the roster report, and the transcript report. So starting up here at the top, the course transfer credit report. This is a report that allows you to see everything from the transfer credit manager. So if you're trying to go in and you're trying to look at reports, or you're trying to look at something to say, who's been submitting external credit requests, who's been doing any of that kind of stuff, this one's going to allow you to see that. Now the course transfer credit report is going to allow you to see anything that's put into transfer credit manager that you're allowed to see, regardless of its status. So if it's been approved, denied, if it's still pending, any of those things, the course transfer credit report is going to allow you to be able to see that data. Now, kind of in a similar vein is the roster report. The roster report allows you to see that exact same data, but for internal NCDPI things. So not things that are housed within Transfer Credit Manager, but the stuff that's housed within the Professional Development tab, the My Courses tab, the course proposal, course approval, the instructor tabs, all of that internal part that's not an external aspect to it. And that could be stuff that's either done at the district level, or it could be stuff that's done at the state level for that perspective. But again, the roster report will allow you to see that regardless of their status. So I can see people who have registered for a course, people who are marked incomplete, people that were marked completed. I can see all of those different statuses for that. And then finally is the transcript report. Now, what's nice about the transcript report is it allows me to see everything that's on the user's transcript. So once I'm marked completed in the roster, it goes on my transcript. Once a transfer credit manager credit is approved, it goes on my transcript. So I can see data from both the internal rosters as well as the transfer credit, but only those that have been completed or approved. So it does limit it down to that area. So again, you can kind of pick and choose which one you're looking for. If I need a report that shows me a crossover, I need to see everything that Cami has done, regardless of whether it was done within NCEES, the NCEES system, or whether it's something she did outside of NCEES and then submitted for approval, then I could go to the transcript report and see that. If I need to verify, I put a course into the system and I need to verify everybody who's completed it, I could go to the roster report. If I need to verify everybody who's submitted a specific, like I know a whole bunch of people in my district just submitted a conference request or a conference, to get credit for the conference and Transfer Credit Manager, you could go to that course transfer credit report and be able to run data from there. All right, so it's all pretty simplistic with professional learning. Professional learning is kind of the easier one, but let's dive into evaluation. So evaluation reporting is a little bit more segmented because it's just more complex. It's more complex of what it is. Now I'm going to come into an evaluation here. Now, I did use an abbreviated here, I used a standard in this case. But when it comes in here, I've got a couple of different activities, and a lot of you are very familiar with this. But I've got things like forms. So the locking instructions, it has this little icon as a form. Technically, the sign off down here is actually a form as well. It's just a form that has that acknowledge button down at the very bottom. And then I have my observations and my assessment observations. These are going to be those rubrics where I can go in and I can put in any of that data. Now, the reason why that matters is because if I want data off of a form versus if I want data off of an observation, it's going to be two different reports. So I'm going to come back here to my report list. And you can see I've got one right here that says evaluation forms. I've actually got three. We'll talk about the differences here in a second. But I've got my forms. This is going to be any data that matches any of, get to the right tab here, any of the fields that either have the little blue forms icon or that have the little pen and paper icon. So anything that is a form is going to be within this data. And I'm actually going to dive into one of these in a second because it runs differently than what I just described for professional learning. If it's something that has to do with the observation, so again, it's something like the formal observation 1, then that's going to actually reside within one of these reports, my observation or my observation single row. Now, to kind of cover those two, because you'll notice I've got an evaluation forms and evaluation form single row and observation single row. Basically, the single row version is just taking all of the data from one person and putting it into one line. So if you're including multiple pieces of data, it's not giving you multiple lines per person. It's giving you a single line with all of that data across. You can use either one. Personally, I like the single row because I would rather see if it's a single plan that I'm looking at, I would prefer to see that data all the way across the line rather than have multiple pieces right there. Now, other reports that are important here, and then I'll dive into them, is one is your evaluation access groups. This one allows you to see, this goes back to that conversation we were having a little bit earlier about the evaluator versus peer observer, all those different ones. The evaluation access group allows you to see for each individual plan who are the people in those groups. So who's designated as an evaluator, who's designated as the owner, which would be the person being evaluated, who's designated as the peer, who's designated as view only. And it allows you to see that. Now, this report does allow you to cross plan types. So you could actually run this report for your abbreviated, your standard, and your comprehensive, and your late hire all at once to be able to get that data straight across. And you'll see why I mentioned that here in a second with the forms part of it. The other one I really, really like for evaluation is the evaluation status report. Now, the evaluation status report, you actually have it also, one of my tabs has it, you have it with this info right here. So these pieces over here are your evaluation statuses. You get your green check marks, you get your little in progresses, your not starteds, all of that kind of data. What the evaluation status report does is it allows you to get that data for any activity that you would like. So again, it does narrow it down to a plan specific, so you can't really do it for all of the plans, but you could go in and say, I need to look at all my standards and identify who's completed something. So if there is an activity that you would like to look at, but it's not listed on this page, you can do that. I know some of you also do it through the evaluation completion. It does work the same way. The difference is the evaluation completion still gives you that visual, where the evaluation status gives you the CSV file that you can pull out and you can do whatever you want to within Excel. All right, now I'm going to jump into an evaluation forms report just because I want to kind of call out this one little nuance with this. So I'm going to click on new report. And the first thing I need to do, so with evaluation reports, whether it's evaluation, observation, any of those, I need to run these reports from the top down. And what I mean by that is starting right up here with evaluation plan, you'll notice that I don't have any data. There's nothing for the evaluation. I can't pick any forms or any fields. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come in and I'm going to pick one. I'm just going to pick abbreviated because it's the top one here. And as soon as I pick one, it's going to take a second, but it's going to refresh and it's going to show me all of the activities, all the steps that are within that activity or within that plan itself. So we can give it a second here. So now you can see it populates with all of these different pieces. I now have every single field that is in a form as part of the abbreviated teacher evaluation plan. Now I can narrow it down further. So if I know, I'm going to come back in here. Now I know I was using standard earlier, but I know I really want to look just at my observation. Actually, I'm going to use my summary one for this. I really just want to look at summary, and I really only want to look at the teacher acknowledgement. So I could actually come in here and I can narrow it down and say, you know what, in my group, I only want to look at the summary evaluation. And again, it's going to narrow down here. It's going to reload and filter. And now it's going to have all the same data that we were looking at before. It's just filtered down. It's only going to show stuff that's within the summary evaluation. And then I can narrow it down even further and say, you know what, I really only want to see the info that is within the teacher acknowledgement. And so I can really narrow it down to only those fields that I want. It is a nice attitude in the sense that if you've got a field that is in a lot of different forms, it's going to show as the same title. So things like date of conference are going to show up multiple times because of the fact that it's listed out there. So now I can come in here and I can choose, you know, all the data that I want. Now, Cami emailed me earlier and said one of the questions that came up was I need to be able to see the sign off itself and you see the sign off itself in the employee ID. Now the sign off itself is, you can get it right here. This is the actual sign off field itself, and it'll show all the data that is within that sign off, which usually just includes the person's name and the date and time that they signed off on it. It doesn't include their actual ID. But this is where I can come down here to include person, and I can say I also need to get their employee ID. So it'll add in that ID for the person who did that specific activity for that component of what we're looking at. All right, so one piece that's important to call out here, if you are trying to look at something like the sign-offs, you've got four different plans. You have the late hire, the comprehensive, the standard, and the abbreviated. You would have to run that 4 different times to make sure that you have it. If you throw in that principal plan, you'd have to run it 5 different times for that perspective. Now, coming back here to my ad hoc reporting one, the other report that I talked about was the observation, and I just want to point out one piece with this one, and then I'm going to pass it over to Cami. But with the new report on this one, same idea. You want to go top down on these. Now remember, for professional learning, you didn't have to worry about that. For evaluation, because there's so much data in there, it's going to worry about that. But the first field up here is the framework. So this is not going to be the evaluation plan. This is going to be the rubric itself. So for example, if Dr. Sox and I were looking at reports and we wanted to look at data from the principal pilot rubric, we could come and pick that principal pilot rubric framework right here. And this is then going to do the same thing we talked about before, but instead of it changing to the form fields, this is going to change to the rubric specific data that is part of that framework, of that rubric. And so same idea. Now when I come down here, this is going to be all those pieces. You know, the one I'll call out, as Dr. Sox mentioned earlier, that extra standard, that standard 8 about equity. So here's where I can see that data right there to be able to include that specific information. All right. Any questions on ad hoc reporting? Or Cami, was there anything else you wanted me to show quickly before I pass it back over to you?
No, I think that's good. Thank you so much, Sean. Awesome as always.
You're
Appreciate
very
that.
Let me know anytime you need anything else, and I'll definitely be able to jump on a webinar or whatever I can do for you.
Thank you, Sean. All right, you guys, did you have any questions or need to see anything else in here? Or any of you that run ad hoc reports for end of year, do you have any comments for our new users about using ad hoc reports for end of year? We have a quiet group today, Sean.
I was going to say it's early, but not for you guys, right?
Well, it's getting toward 11:30 now, so.
Right. It is a Monday. We'll give them that.
Okay, I'm gonna take sharing back. Let's see.
All right. Thank you very much. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, Sean. All right, bye-bye. All right, let me share my screen. So one of the things that the people that register for this webinar asked for was the end of year reports. Now, we did cover a lot of that last home base meetup, but we're going to re-look at some of it. They've done so much work on this export to PDF report that I think you guys would probably really like to save your end of year ratings. There's always the reporting quick reports that we talked about earlier. Scared to click on anything. Let's see if it's going to move. Or if it's going to be really slow. Might have to stick with the slides. Yep, sound like I need to be calling PowerSchool right after this. So under reporting, and I had in our slides that screenshot for those summary evaluation reports. Definitely run those. The other way you can get individual PDFs of those ratings is to use your export a plan to PDF. And let's see if we can get there. If not, we'll do the slides. Yeah, that's not a good sign. All right, we're going to do slides. Sorry about this, guys. And I might see if Chrome's doing any better. Sometimes I can get Chrome to work a little better. But the export a plan to PDF will give you those individual PDFs. You can do it just for your summary evaluation ratings. You can get all the data that's in the plans. You can do other partial exports. Maybe you're trying to get information, those signature reports for BT audits. All of that can be done through export a plan to PDF. You just need to run them early enough for them to process, depending on how many staff are in your district. So let's see if we can get in here and see if it's moving any better in Chrome. All right, so export a plan to PDF is for, I want to say it's only for district administrators. I know I've asked for them to allow site administrators to run this, but I'm gonna have to follow up on that. Here's export a plan to PDF. It's under applications. This is the dashboard. Zoom in a little bit, where you're gonna see your queue. So once you've scheduled a new export, you're gonna see it show up in your queue. Whoever gets in here first gets their report run first. If it's a large report, it could take several nights because it runs overnight during certain hours in between when they're creating the person import file and everything like that. So, and if it doesn't fully run the first night, then it's going to wait until that next night's time frame to complete that report. Here are some reports that have run. You're going to see what you've named it, how many completed, how many failed. So, and if there are failures, and I don't see any on here that have any failures, but you can click the little information icon to see details. And if there were any errors, it would give you those details. This is the section that PowerSchool has cleaned up a lot. So, and Heather, if you're on with us today, we can see why these are doing 0 and 0. I think I know what it might be, but we'll take a look at that in a minute. All right, so here's schedule a new export. And there are help guides on the help guides page for exporting a staff plan to PDF. So do use those help guides. So the first page is going to list any plan that's been in the system. So I want to filter this down. So I can either put in a year here, maybe. Let's try 2022. Or you can add a filter to do the same thing. So you can do name, contains, and you can put 2022. And then update table. But I already put it in here in the search. So maybe I want to run my abbreviated plans for this year. And I want the summary evaluation information. So I'm going to bullet that. I'm going to say next. The full export is going to be kind of like what Sean just showed you. All those activities on that page are going to be included. Partial export, I only want the summary ratings. So I'm going to do a partial export. Template export. So these are the templates that are out there in the plan, those record of activity templates. So whenever you run a record of activities report, you know, in the PDP, there's 4 of them. In your evaluations, there's 1 each. That's what those templates are. And then advanced export includes all the data plus the template. This right here is really neat, but you guys don't have it yet. So this is one of the enhancement requests. So if I just wanted to run for the peer observers, I could select them, but you guys don't have that yet. So that's one of those enhancement requests you could go vote on. It does narrow it down very nicely. So we're going to click next. All right, and then here's all the activities. And I don't want all these activities. See how they're all checked? So just like the ad hoc reports, you can uncheck everything. So in this report, I only want this summary evaluation information. Zoom in a little bit. So, oops. So you can see here. So like if you wanted to run the peer signatures, you can do all of that. There's the record of evaluation activities. This is just what's in the container in the plan. It's not the record of activities template. This is different. Here's the summary. So I want the actual ratings in the form. Maybe I want the signatures. If you want like written responses, you could do those as well. If you want to know if it's locked, you can do that as well. I just want to know, I want to know that the signatures are there and the ratings. And then I think that's all I want. So we're going to do next. And remember, when you're running reports in NCEES, it most of the time only runs reports on active plans. So if you've assigned somebody a plan and you're looking for their peer observer and they've not started it, and you run a report for peer observers, that plan is not going to show up until they start their plan. All right, so we've selected our summary evaluation activities. Now we need to know who to include in the report. You can do specific users, specific districts. If you're over more than one district, you would just be in one district. You may be interested in specific sites. So here you can just add everybody you want in the report. So I can just add people. And once you add them and you see you clicked on somebody you don't want, you can remove them. You could also do specific sites. So if you're a large district and you've got several school sites, then you could just include, maybe you just want to run your middle schools. So you can do those. Come back to specific users. And see, it does hold it. So that's why I wanted to show you when you moved. It does hold what you've checked. And then we're going to do next. Who does this report need to go to? Well, I want to get it. Let's try. Let's do it. It looks for your name. Sometimes it takes a minute. All right. See, it pops up. Click on that, and then you're added. Now, the one thing nice about this is you can email other people about this report. However, you're the one that can get into NCEES, but they can't. It will let them know that you've run this report, but it doesn't, I don't think it actually emails in the report. Pretty sure it doesn't, because it's going to be in the queue for you to pick up. So you can notify other people if you put them in here. Separate the emails with a comma if you need to notify more than one person. Click next. I need to name this report. And then the macros. The macros are in your help guide. Let's see if I can get them here. They're also listed under this question mark, but you can't come up here and copy them. So I did put them in your help guide so you can copy them. So the macros, let's do last name. Oh, I've got some here. All right. This is the only area that you're going to get an employee ID. So it can go on the file name macro. So this on each report, it'll list their ID, their last name, their first name, if you type it in like this. The ID does not show within the report. So if you want an employee ID, it needs to go on the macro. Now for those reports that we saw that were getting 0, 0, 0 complete and 0 failed, it's because if you add employee ID here and then you check this box, it's not going to be. Where it says exclude unique record ID if employee ID is included, then if you put employee ID here, then it's not going to run anything because you just told it to exclude it. So check that for whoever was running those reports. Make sure that box is not checked. And then this next one, delivery method, you must change. We don't have everybody's FTP accounts. You don't have access to DPI's FTP. So check this next box. So it will go in the queue for you to pick up, the final queue, completed queue. And then when do you want this report to run? Well, I want it to start today. How long do I want the report to be available before it goes away? It gives me time to download it. You can put any kind of date in here. It can actually go on and on. So you can pick a date to keep it active. And then these next ones are optional. Do you want to not include anybody that's now inactive that's still connected to you? Do you want to include the file attachments? That I don't know that I do because it gives you a PDF for every attachment. And then am I exporting only completed plans? I know some people do that. Or export only shared observations. Now the principal, the evaluator does have to share observations, but if you're running principal reports, those don't always have to be shared. So make sure what you're checking there. And then I always leave this bullet here on associate the evaluation to the location of the owner where the plan was started. That's where the district that started the plan, they own that plan, and the owner of the plan owns that plan. And then you just click finalize. It gives you a chance to review all your settings, and you can come over here and make changes to any of these if you want. Once you're sure you have what you want to run, you're going to schedule your export. And now it's scheduled in my export queue. Once it's run, it will show down here in the completed exports. While it's in this queue, I have some options to view it, to copy it, and maybe do another report, change a few things, or to cancel it. Once it shows up down here, you have the option to view it, again to copy it and rerun a new report, to view the details of it or delete it, or you can click on it to look at it, and if there was a report here, it would allow you to download it. All right, any questions about how to run those exports to PDF? I think this is an awesome way for you to get those individual PDFs that you may need next year. Does anybody have any comments? Have you tried to run these reports and do you like them? Still have a quiet group.
I haven't had a chance to run them yet.
Okay. You think you might try them?
Yes.
Yeah, good. All right, so I think we're getting ready to wrap up. Does anybody else have any comments? All right, I'm gonna skip through these slides. I just left them in here we went over this last time as well, and I had put some screenshots in here as well. And I'm happy to jump on a call if you kind of get stuck in there and I'm not sure what to do, just give me a call. We'll make sure to talk about it. Let me copy this and open our chat. All right, let me see if we have any questions in here. All right. Sally says export to PDF has worked great. She does them for the summary evaluations. And I see some thank yous. I'm going to thank you guys back. You guys are awesome too. So here's our feedback. Please do fill this out. And then there's a place for you to choose if you keep up with CEUs to receive that certificate. All right, so we do have about, let's see, 5-10 minutes. So does anybody have any questions that we didn't look at or talk about today? Anything you want to network about?
Hey, Cami, this is Brian in Buncombe.
Yes.
You did. I missed the Padlet that you did early in the session, but that's okay. I'm wondering now that you've mentioned it, and also Sean Vair has mentioned it, that we need to like vote up these enhancement requests on PowerSchool. I mean,
Yes.
how important is it, that we put things on Padlet versus voting up things in PowerSchool? I mean, if we vet it
Both,
through
because
multiple people, what do we really need to do that? Or because I don't have an account to vote those things up, and I don't know if other people are wondering the
yeah,
same
it's
thing.
easy to sign up. So you can just register. Let me try to get there.
I mean, I guess I'm asking, my question is for the people who are still on the call in the group, like, are others doing this, or, is this something that you're encouraging us to do if we feel really strongly about something?
Yeah, I encourage you to vote because that's what PowerSchool looks at. But I've also had, and Robert's also had this discussion on PowerSchool that we don't have the number of folks like the SIS system does, the student system, to vote up an issue. So we're going to keep pressing for them to.
And that's what I'm wondering.
Those,
if they get a PowerSchool request on the student information system, and it's got 300 votes for it,
right?
And it's like, I vote some piddly thing, and only Sally and Angela and a couple others voted up. I mean, is it even likely that it's going to hit their radar?
Yes, that one will. In fact, on that first one for the drop down, PowerSchool had 7 of their folks voted up because they really liked it. So yes, when you come out here to this help.powerschool.com, you'll see sign in. I'm already signed in, but when you sign in, it's going to have a button off to the side for you to register. It's just, that's all you need to do is to register. It'll set your name and your password. And then you can come out here under contacts. Well, I lost my contact support and go to the PowerSchool Ideas portal. But yes, know that even if you've not come out here to vote these up, I do review our list. I have 28 ideas out here. So I'm going to do those since those are ours. Out here, see, they voted up that. They know, and I've told them we don't have 300 people to go vote. But anybody that you can get to go create just a quick account and come out here and vote, great. That will help push that even further.
And what we will do and have done, because we can't vote it up, is we have told them, this is Cami alluded to, we have told them before, look, this has got to happen.
Yeah.
We're in North Carolina. This has got to happen. We got to get this done. So, but if it's in there, we're at least following their process, and it gives us a little bit of a feel for it. But I would urge you to do that, yes, because it helps us sell our argument as well.
Yep. And then also, you don't see like my ideas, but you can come down here and click on, you see your own ideas, but you can't see mine. You can click on Perform Enterprise for all the ideas that are connected to Perform Enterprise, and just they'll be in there as well if you don't have the number to search by, because you can also search by the number that I put in that list. And thank you, Eleanor, for reminding me about the filters over here.
Can I vote that Eleanor creates like 300 accounts for this PowerSchool community and just like vote all of ours up?
Yep. And I see Sally's asking, can you vote more than once? I don't think you can. If you try it, you can try it, but I don't think I've tried to vote more than once. I think you can only vote once.
I don't think you can. Lord knows, as much of a pain as I am, I try to do it all the time.
Yeah. Oh. All right. So that's the end of our session for today. Let me put this screen up. Again, I just want to remind you that I'm available to do those regional sessions. If you have like local sessions, I don't mind getting on a virtual call. If it works out, I don't even mind going out to your location, but we need to check calendars and look at travel time and all of that as well. But definitely those regional summer events, I'm happy to present at. There's my email address. Here's my calendar. We've had a lot of those recently, so just let me know. And again, reminder that I would really like to have a charter to join our advisory board. So be throwing out some names to me if you know some charters in your district that would like to do that. Or if you're on board here today and you're a charter, let me know if you'd like to join our advisory board. All right, any final questions? Yep, and Eleanor's saying if we're in the Charlotte area, she would love to have lunch or happy hour. That sounds good. All right, then. Thank you, guys. I'm going to stop the recording and wish you a great Monday, and thank you for joining us today.